This is my personal first review of a book called On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Vuong. I have a lot of mixed feelings on this book. I also cried several times at this book, and you will see images of me crying. So if you find pleasure in my pain, this one's probably for you. This book, the way I'll do this is basically I'll go through quotes that I took photos of or screenshotted as a way to keep me jogging that memory of mine, because I have a pretty bad one. So I'm gonna use those to kind of tell like the plot, I guess. The thing is about this book is that the plot is very loose. I would call it a slice of life, but in a way that's it's not cute. It's not a cute slice of life where like a lot of slice of lives are very calm and peaceful and all that. This is anything but. This is very distressing. I would call it a slice of life in that sense, where it's kind of different glimpses of a boy's life, but told to support the themes of the book. Okay, basically, the general consensus is that it's a boy writing a letter to his mother who doesn't speak or understand English. So he's a Vietnamese boy. The name of the character, or the narrator, is Little Dog. He's not given a name besides that. That is his name, Little Dog. And it is said that the reason that he's called this, it's meant to be a nickname, but we're never told his actual name. He's called Little Dog because Little Dog basically is a way to both protect him, and it kind of demeans him too. Basically, in tradition, Vietnamese tradition, they would call him Little Dog because it would ward off the spirits looking for children. And because he's named Little Dog, he doesn't seem appealing to all the spirits. So he's called that throughout the entire book, even by people who are not his family or not Vietnamese. So I'm assuming that either that just is what he tells everyone to call him, or that is how he's basically narrating this to his mother. The general themes of this book are his family, his grandmother, his mother, and his aunt are Vietnamese immigrants. So they've come to America, they've come to Connecticut, Hartford, and other themes in this are it's a queer story. So there's a storyline with him and a boy named Trevor, which happens I think around the middle to the end of the book, maybe earlier than middle. There's a lot of other themes. There's themes about addiction, which Trevor goes through, and a lot of the people around Little Dog's life. So there's addiction, there's stuff like mourning and grief, which happens when, okay, obviously there's gonna be spoilers in this, when the grandmother dies, and even before that there's stories of grief. There's a lot of theming around animals. There's a lot of different animals that are mentioned in this book. They're used as a device to kind of explore human nature and just the laws of nature itself, which is also mentioned throughout the book. So there's stuff about monarch butterflies, and that's how he kind of starts it off too. Stories about butterfly and how they immigrate and how they never return back, which is pretty a pretty good outline for what happens in the story. There's a lot of other themes. Before I even talk about my own feelings about it, I do think it's something that's worth reading. I have a love-hate relationship with it. Love because I do think what it's trying to say and its imagery is very cool and very important, and the way Vuong writes his books is also very cool and very interesting. He's a poet by heart, but the way he writes is also sort of like poetry. The thing is, he uses a lot of flowery language, which, if that's your thing, if you're really into like kind of like analyzing or looking at imagery, it's probably something that's like a feast for you, and it's very heavy and thorough in that sense. But if you're trying to read it casually, it's a bit harder. I feel like there's a lot of parts where you have to really think about what he's trying to say if you want to get the full scope of what the book means and what the book is trying to say. So that's kind of like my hate part. I do enjoy analyzing and all that, but I also want to be able to more easily understand things like this. But sometimes art is not made to be understood so quickly. I think I'll probably have to reread this one. I literally just finished reading it like 10 minutes ago. So yeah, I also finished reading it in like 2 days. Like I'd say probably less than like 10 hours. It is a very good book. I do think the love part of it comes from the fact that it is quite engaging. I find it to be interesting. I saw people saying like it's pretty boring and that it falls off after like the first few chapters, which I think for me was the opposite. I kind of was lost for the first few chapters, and then like around the middle to the end I got really into it, and I thought it was like really good. So yeah, those are just like my very general thoughts about the themes and all that. So if that interests you at all, maybe you want to read it, or maybe you want to listen to me talk about it and the stuff that I found interesting. So yeah, I'll do the quotes and stuff now that I have. I'll put them on the screen too. They're pretty low quality though, because they're literally photos taken off my laptop screen. But I hope you enjoyed yours. Christmas Eve with my mother and sis. Obviously, I'm gonna be reading because I have the memory of a elderly patient. I have severe dementia, so obviously I'm not remembering these by heart. So the first thing I have, which is something I actually posted like yesterday, is the thing about the murder of an unnamed Chinese man. Specifically the line, "The nameless yellow body was not considered human because it did not fit in the slot on a piece of paper. Sometimes you are erased before you are given the choice of stating who you are. To be or not to be, that is the question." So the thing is, obviously a big part of the story in this book is racism and how it comes against the little dog and his family and all that. They're demeaned multiple times, especially when it comes to language. That's a very, very big thing in this book. How they can't speak English, or at least the other people in Little Dog's family can't really. And how language is used as such a weapon, and how words and the words itself and like the use of them can create a structure or a building, and how we use them to weaponize against others. That's something that is really prevalent around this whole book and is used as imagery a few times. I think saying that, using the phrase, "Sometimes you're erased before you are given the choice of stating who you are," and then followed by the Shakespeare quote, "To be or not to be, that is the question." I find that to be just very cool. I think like the dichotomy of using a Shakespeare quote when discussing like semantics, and also saying that like how basically this case where a man couldn't get the justice he had because he wasn't considered populated enough, or he wasn't considered human in the sense of word. I don't know. I think it's pretty cool. It's pretty fucking cool. I'm also not very good at describing things, so if I just say a lot of things are just cool, I'm so sorry. So yeah, that one's just pretty cool. And you know, I'm pretty into a lot of stuff about race, and obviously how that is dealt with in our world, and I think that this is a pretty good prime example of how fucked up times were. This is 1884, so obviously this wouldn't be something that would be prevalent nowadays, sort of, but for it to be this explicit, man, it's pretty you know, terrible. Then the next one I had was this one. I will just read it out. "There are times late at night when your son would wake believing a bullet is lodged inside of him. He'd feel it floating on the right side of his chest, just between the ribs. The bullet was always here, the boy thinks, older than even himself, and his bones, tendons, and veins had merely wrapped around the metal shard, sealing it inside of him. It wasn't me, the boy thinks, who was inside my mother's womb, but this bullet. This seed I bloomed around, even now as the cold creeps in around him. He feels it poking out from his chest, slightly tensing his sweater. He feels for the protrusion, but as usual finds nothing. It's receded, he thinks. It wants to stay inside of me. It is nothing without me, because a bullet without a body is a song without ears." I took this as imagery for kind of like, because he's talking about his mother and he's talking about his family basically. I see this as a way of like, you know, generational trauma. You know, like the Jamie Lee Curtis clip.
Yeah,
Generational trauma. I think that is what this is meant to represent. But not only that, it is the embracing of it. A lot of people choose to deny generational trauma and want to be the ones to kind of stray away from it. I think in this one, he kind of talks about how it is part of him and he has no choice, you know, saying that the bullet, which is in my opinion representative of the trauma, or the whatever the families before him has faced, it was inside of the mother before he was, because that's how it is. The mother was the one dealing with all of it before she even had the child. This bullet, which is something that is meant to cause violence and something that is meant to cause, you know, harm, is something that has been embraced by not only the mother but by Little Dog. He thinks that it's receded, and that it wants to stay inside him, but he may or may not want it. But not only that, it cannot exist without him. Generational trauma cannot exist without someone to pass it on. So because a bullet without a body is a song without ears, because a song without ears is practically useless. Is there a point of a song to exist if no one is there to listen to it? Same as, is there a point to generational trauma? Is there a point for it to exist if there's not someone to carry it? Pretty fucking cool imagery, man. And I also just thought the way that this was described is really like visceral, you know, talking about how the tendons and the veins and merely wrapped around the metal shard. I think that's very stark imagery. It's kind of crazy. So yeah, the next one. This one's pretty I don't know. This happened during a moment where it's basically Little Dog and Trevor, after I think when they met the first time, or a few times after that, they're basically talking and they're kind of sharing a sweet moment after they had crashed the car, and little dog's mother is at home basically waiting for him. They talk about like how she reheats the noodles multiple times waiting for him to come home, and because the mother in this story is such a kind of figurehead, I wouldn't say strong, she's not necessarily strong in this book, but she's very non-responsive to emotion and is pretty chill in that way. Having the visual of her kind of obviously feeling some type of way about not having her son at home, it's pretty sad, especially in this part where her son is basically out for the first time, or around one of the first times, and he's sharing this moment of fondness with a boy, which we'll come back to later. But the last line of this part was, "Ma, you once told me that memory is a choice, but if you were God, you know that it's a flood." Memory and basically nostalgia, thinking about the past, is something that's pretty prevalent in this book too, especially around the end where it's used as a metaphor. I don't completely understand what this line actually means, and I haven't really done that much to kind of like look at it or like understand it. I think what this is trying to say is that memory doesn't just come in one. Memory comes as a whole. You can think of one thing, but as soon as you think of one thing, you think to another thing in the past. For example, if I were to think about a sandwich I ate yesterday, I'll start thinking about yesterday and what I did yesterday. Not just the sandwich, but other things around it and what's surrounding it. So him trying to establish that memory isn't just a choice. You can't just choose what you think about or what you remember, but in fact it comes in a flood, because floods are unexpected and floods are something that come in such big amounts. So it's not only that if you choose to remember it, but if you choose to remember something, everything else will come with it. And not only that, but memories can come in ways that you don't even expect. You may not choose to remember something, but because of other events or because of other things, you will end up remembering it rather than choosing to do so. Yeah, because this paragraph, or I guess this part of the book kind of starts with the mother saying that memory is a choice, and that basically yeah, she just says that memory is a choice. And also little dog phrases his mother says that she's like a god and that she sees everything. So I guess he's just mixing that together. That happens a lot in this book too. He basically mixes a lot of things that he hears or he sees or he knows, and he puts them together in order to create a last few sentences for impact. I do think that was very repetitive. I don't know, it felt very like, oh, I'm so deep, but I'm pretty sure it's just because it's poetry in a way, so that's something that's used in poetry, where he's like trying to make the last few sentences really impactful. Who's to know, who's to say? But yeah, hey, this one. Okay, so onto the grandmother. The grandmother is named Laan, which is a type of flower. I'm pretty sure it's lilacs. I could be very wrong, but this is a moment where little dog had run away from home when he was 10, and the grandma had found him. And there's actually nothing much here in terms of like imagery. I just think it's both a really cute and really sad moment. When you see the way that the mother, and especially the grandmother, talks, the grandmother uses a lot of, I'm assuming the grandmother does attempt to speak English, as she was a survivor of the Vietnamese War, which is another big theme in this book. And she had kind of picked up on some English or some ways to speak English, and when she speaks, it's very grammatically incorrect, and something about it makes her sound really human, and it really makes you connect to her, which is really fucked up. And they kill her at the end, or she dies at the end. When they describe her holding like a baby was a bag of Cool Ranch Doritos. In her other hand was a Poland Spring water bottle filled with warm jasmine tea. She kept muttering to herself, "You don't need to be scared. No need." I found it really kind of interesting how what the grandmother basically brings to him as a way to comfort is American snacks and also an American water bottle filled with Vietnamese tea. I'm pretty sure it wasn't intentional. I don't know if it was, but it does feel very like, you know, you're safe here, you're safe with us, you're safe with the American things around you and what we have come to be accompanied with, which are these American things. But in it all, in the water bottle, is still Vietnamese tea. It's still Vietnam. Again, I don't think this is intentional whatsoever. It's a very small thing, and it's pretty sure it's just to make it seem very, you know, like nostalgic and all that. But I just thought it was kind of, you know, nice. It was a small little imagery, especially coming from the grandmother, who is someone who represents Vietnam in this whole book. So yeah, it's just a really cute moment. Okay, this next one. So obviously another big part of this is femininity and queerness. This is I won't read this whole thing out, but it's basically just talking about how dangerous a color can be. Little dog, when he was a child, had a bike that was gifted to him by his mother. Obviously, the mother probably doesn't understand the gender norms of like pink and blue and all that. So the mother, or because it was also the cheapest bike that was out there for him, the mother had bought him a bike and it was pink colored. So boys around his town would bully him for it. The large boy took out a keychain and started scraping the paint off my bike. So he watched as pink flew off his bike, and this line also was pretty crazy. I wanted to cry but did not yet know how to in English. I just thought that was really sad. So yeah, that was the day I learned how dangerous a color can be. So yeah, I don't have much to say about this one, it's just pretty sad. And then the last part where it's basically his mother trying to fix it with pink nail polish. Oh my god. Once again, I did cry multiple times, but you know, even if color is nothing but what the light reveals, that nothing has laws, and a boy on a pink bike must learn, above all else, the law of gravity. Because he's pushed off his bike, and it's the law of gravity, but that nothing has laws because, you know, light itself is infinite, everything is infinite, pink is pink, blue is blue, nothing has laws. Girl. Gooped and gagged. This was basically after him and Trevor, his they obviously never refer to each other as like partners or anything like that, because Trevor has like deep internalized homophobia, which we'll get to also. But his partner, basically, Trevor, this is after they've had hung out a few weeks before, and they met on a barn, a tobacco farm, which Little Dog worked at, and they would hang out in that barn all the time. So this was after, I'm pretty sure this was after he came out, Little Dog came out to his mother too, which I didn't really take much photos of or anything like that, because it's pretty sad and I was crying a lot. So I couldn't really get it all up in that. But this was after that where they've kind of settled over it, I guess. And he had hay in his hair, or like, yeah, a sprig of hay caught there from the barn weeks before will stick out from my black hair. You will reach over, brush it off, and shake your head as you take in the sun you decided to keep. Ooh. It's that last part, obviously. And shake your head as you take in the sun you decided to keep. The existence of choice when it comes to having a child is something that I felt was really impactful, that when faced with this kind of, I guess, adversity, that the mother would suddenly have a choice on whether or not she wanted to keep this child long after it's been born. And because it was revealed somewhere when Little Dog comes out to his mother reveals to Little Dog that, hey, I had a child that I had to abort. I had no choice to, and I had to abort your who would be your older brother, but he's gone now and he's dead and he's aborted, and I didn't have a choice in it because of the Vietnam War and all that, and basically she just didn't have a choice. So that plus the coming out, plus this coming after it, and how she shakes her head as she takes in the son she decided to keep, that makes it really impactful. And those things coming out one after another really kind of, I don't know, it just made it feel like their bond was stronger, despite the fact that she basically doesn't really accept him in that sense. It's not really explored much after this on how the mother feels about her son liking men. So it was a very good moment for what it's supposed to do, and I'm very satisfied with the fact that it's not really explored afterwards, their relationship when it comes to this, because I don't think it's needed. I think this pretty much settles it all. She shakes her head at the son that she decided to keep, which could be something fond, it could be something not fond. I feel like we read it a lot of different ways. I see it as fondness, you know, it's something that we do. We shake our heads when we're satisfied, when, you know, the act of like taking something out of his hair, in itself is an act of care, and it's an act of, I still see you, and I think that's pretty fucking cool. Okay, this isn't much. It was just, I just like the way that was described, the scenery. Basically, him and Trevor have gone up to the top of a hill, and they look over the city that they live in, and the personification of it, talking about the oxygen in his throat, his lungs, the bronchi, and the blood vessels expanding. It's not only meant to kind of refer back to Trevor, and obviously seeing Trevor as a human, seeing Trevor as a boy, as a man, but also how he sees the town now, when he can see all of it in its glory. It's good. It's just cool imagery, cool description. This one I screenshotted because it is kind of funny. It's meant to be like deep and has imagery, but it's kind of funny to me. It's the last part, that no matter who you are or what you love or where you stand, it was always Coca-Cola in the end. It's also the fact that it rhymes. It makes it really funny. Basically, there's a Coca-Cola factory in their town. They both like Sprite. It's been talked about before, and they are drinking Sprite together. I saw, if we're trying to talk about the imagery of it or like the meaning of it, I saw it as kind of seeing that this is, first of all, talking about how everyone sticks to their belief systems. We tend to go to beliefs even when we're faced with things that possibly oppose those beliefs and we may even agree with, but in the end we will always go back to what we believe in because that's what's most important to us. And not only that, but Coca-Cola in this sense is kind of just like, represented as humans, or like human imagery. It's us. Coca-Cola is us. The city throbbed, shimmered, then trying to snap himself out of it. To me, that shows the kind of snap back into your belief system, even when you're faced with beauty and even when you're faced with something that goes against your beliefs. He said, fuck Coca-Cola. Yeah, Sprite for life, fuckers. I added, not knowing then what I know now. Not knowing then what I know now, that Coca-Cola and Sprite are made by the same damn company. It's that frustration that really makes me think like, oh, so we're talking about people. Coca-Cola and Sprite are the same company, and it's the same species, it's the same of humans, that no matter what you are or what you love or where you stand, it was always Coca-Cola in the end. Doesn't matter what you believe in, doesn't matter who you love or what side of the world you're standing on, you're human after all, and you may try to believe that you're superior than a different type of human, or you're inferior than another type of human, or whatever, or you're different because you believe in one thing. For example, you like Sprite more than Coca-Cola, but in the end you're still Coca-Cola. You're still human. You're made by the same factory. You're made by the same science. And yeah, pretty cool. This one was during a time where him and Trevor were fighting. I'm assuming it's actually pretty, I would say it's kind of vague. They don't really go into what happened here, but I'm pretty sure it's like Trevor's like kind of going through something. Because Trevor does end up falling into drugs and all that. But this small part which says, Trevor who texted you after 2 months of silence writing please instead of PLZ. Ooh. It's kind of made me sad. So yeah, it's kind of it. So Trevor has a scar on his neck, which is kind of shaped like a comma and is used as there's a lot of like literary devices turned into metaphors here, and one of them is the comma, which is the scar. I'll read this whole part out because I do feel like it's kind of important, and I'll break it down line by line. Because he tasted like the river, and maybe you are one wing away from sinking. Because the calf waits in its cage so calmly to be veal. Because you remembered, and memory is a second chance. First of all, veal is basically pretty sure it's like the children of cows, or like very small cows who are sent to be eaten. They're basically kept in boxes, and they will only live to grow to the size of that box before they're like slaughtered and eaten, and they're like freed and then killed and eaten. And in this sense, it's used as a metaphor for femininity, or used as a metaphor for being weak. It's something that Trevor refuses to be, because again, Trevor's internalized homophobia. He's extremely opposed to being too queer, but at the same time, between him and Little Dog, he's actually more full of affection, which is pretty, I would say that's pretty rare. Usually it's the protagonist or the one who is more within their queerness that shows so much affection to the other party. But in this sense, Trevor is actually the one who has more affection. The sound buried deep in Trevor's chest, and you listen, that ringing. You listen like an animal learning how to speak. I'm actually not sure what this means. I'm still kind of trying to figure it out. But general imagery here, it really ties everything in. Listening like an animal learning how to speak. In this whole book, humans are the same as animals. It's kind of alluded to multiple times, obviously, that we humans are the same as any animal. But not only that, but an animal learning to speak is kind of similar to what Little Dog goes through as a Vietnamese person, or someone who did not fully have a grasp on English, learning how to do it. And especially with Trevor, who is kind of seen as this whole like all-American like hillbilly type of person. Okay, and then this is basically the part where it's kind of compared the veal to Trevor. He basically is kind of in that spiral of denying that he's queer and that he's not a faggot and all that. Trevor the hunter, Trevor the carnivore, the redneck, not a pansy, shotgunner, sharpshooter, not fruit or fairy. Trevor meat eater, but not veal, never veal. Fuck that, never again, after his daddy told him the story when he was 7. I'm pretty sure, just representing of the veal and all that, it is meant to be represent the internalized homophobia and talking about how basically Trevor never eats, even though he is a carnivore and obviously he eats a lot of meat, he never eats these cow children. I think in a way both represents him trying not to face the weakness in him as a person who's queer. He doesn't want to be represented by that weakness, but not only that, he doesn't want to eat something that is seen as weak because he doesn't want to kind of identify with it, I guess. He doesn't want to identify with weakness in a sense, and I think that's very present. I don't know. Okay, then yeah, it is told to us that Trevor dies. And I will be honest, I probably did cry a bit at this part. The thing is, Trevor and Little Dog's relationship is not necessarily unhealthy. Obviously, Trevor's own life with the drugs and all that was extremely unhealthy, but their relationship together never really got to a point where one was scared of the other or one was against the other. Obviously, it's small remarks of like Trevor kind of telling Little Dog not to be a faggot and all that, or not to do the girly thing with him. But it never gets to a point where they're like hatred with one another. So you can still kind of grow to love how they were something for each other and how they kind of both found comfort in each other in that sense. They hung out a lot. It seemed that Trevor was probably one of Little Dog's only friends and vice versa. So it was kind of hurt when we found out that basically Trevor is dead. This part was pretty sad. Trevor had passed away the night before. I'm broken in two, the message said. In two. It was the only thought I could keep, sitting in my seat, how losing a person could make more of us, the living, make us two. And I kind of felt like, wow, that is like, I feel like that is pretty, I don't know the word for it, but it makes me reflect. Where when we think of something like heartbreak, we think of the heart literally breaking in half, but when we see that makes more of a heart, it makes more love, it makes more passion that we have because we were so heartbroken by it. I think that's really impactful, and saying how someone's death can break you in two, it's literally making more of yourself, more of you to have passion for or to make you feel. The reason you're heartbroken in the first place, the reason that your things have split apart is because in the first place you had so much of it to give that person. So when that person is gone, when the thing is lost, you end up breaking it. You break apart that passion that you had, and it becomes more of it because now you realize that you don't have that passion anymore. You can't have that passion anymore for someone that you did have so much passion for. So I just thought that was pretty deep, and it worked as a image, as a metaphor, I guess. Yeah, that got my ass. Not sure. This part was really sad. I didn't know that would be the last time I'd see him. His neck scar lit blue by the diner's neon marquee. To see that little comma again, to put my mouth there, let my shadow widen the scar until at last there was no scar to be seen at all. Just a vast and equal dark sealed by my lips. A comma superimposed by a period the mouth so naturally makes. Isn't that the saddest thing in the world, ma? A comma forced to be a period. I don't like the last line where it says a comma forced to be a period. As imagery wise, it is meant to say that how a continuation of a line turns into the end of it, life itself, how we always want to continue our life and keep having commas to keep going on for sentences, but it ends with a period. I just think the way it sounds is very corny, like a comma forced to be a period. Like, okay girl, whatever you say. But obviously it does mean quite a lot, especially when it comes to the context of Travis's neck scar and how Little Dog, kisses it. Yeah, it's pretty good imagery there, and it just made me really sad. A comma, that there was no scar to be seen at all, just a vast and equal dark sealed by my lips. Damn, bro. Come on, bro. Okay, and then this whole part, I'm not gonna read all of it. I'm just gonna describe what's happening here. It's after Little Dog comes back from, he ends up in New York for college and stuff, but he goes back home and starts crying after like being in the rain, and he ends up crying and coming to his mother and just lying down next to her. Just like comes in the home, lies down, and like starts crying and saying like, I hate him. And he says it in English, so obviously his mother can't understand him, but it's him repeatedly saying I hate him in English, and she cannot understand it, but all she can do is just sit there and try to comfort her. try to comfort her and, you know, trying her best to understand even though she can't. And I think something about that makes it really emotional, and it's like, oh my god. You know, it just sucks. It just sucks quite a lot. There's a whole other part about kipuka, which is like apparently a word that basically means it's kind of making something special because of the suffering that it's gone through. It basically just means that after a volcano has come down, the spot of land that's not affected by the lava is called kipuka. And it is interesting how that something only has a name, or something ends up having an identity after it has gone through suffering, which links back to the story of the grandmother, who basically, the grandmother gets her name from naming herself during the Vietnam War, where she was called originally just called Seven. Like, girl, okay, Stranger Things, like, fuck. Originally she was just called Seven, because that was the seventh, she was the seventh child. But during the war, she had flee and ran away, and she ended up naming herself, and the beauty of that name itself has come out of her. So it just links back to that. She is basically the kipuka, and I think that's, you know, sad. That how something can only gain recognition, how something can only gain a name and identity after it has gone through suffering. It's pretty real. I mean, yeah. I'm not gonna go into this much. Actually, Ocean Vuong has talked about this in interviews too. Basically, the way that we describe things, we often use violence as a way to kind of like enunciate it or make it seem like positive. So like, you killed that poem, you're a killer, you came into that novel guns blazing, I'm hammering this paragraph, I'm banging them out, stuff like that. We use destruction and violence as a way to describe words, and basically it links back to the question if destruction is necessary for art. And this character, Little Dog, who is obviously kind of talking in the place of Ocean Vuong, he says that no sir, destruction is not necessary. But the thing is, it kind of is. Destruction creates so much kind of art because of us looking for places to be creative, or looking for things to rely back on because of destruction and because of what destruction causes and violence causes. So yeah, just small thing there. Okay, this sounds really sad. This was really, really sad. In Vietnamese, the word for missing someone and remembering them is the same. No, sometimes when you ask me over the phone, "Con no me kong," I flinched thinking you meant, "Do you remember me? I miss you more than I remember you." I think this is one of the lines in the book where it's both impactful and also pretty easy to understand. You missing someone more than you remember them. The idea of them, the image of them, the person that they are, you obviously will miss them, but you can't remember much about them. And when linking it back to the Vietnamese word "no," which is both missing someone and remembering them, I think that just creates a really distinct and impactful thing that anyone can understand. Thumbs up to you, Ocean Vuong. I cried a lot at this one. Basically, it's I forgot the context of this, but it's just him talking about rules that he has for himself or for his mother. The rules, like streets, can only take you to known places. So these are the rules that can only take him to places that he knows. As a rule, to be more. As a rule, that he misses his mother. As a rule, little is always smaller than small. Don't ask me why. I'm pretty sure this is like a little quip or a little joke. I don't think it actually means anything. It's just like a literary thing. I'm sorry I don't call enough. Green apple, which is like a sour, like a candy that he keeps eating after Trevor is gone because of the candy that they ate together. I'm sorry I keep saying "how are you" when I really mean "are you happy?" I'm pretty sure this is a cultural thing. I'm pretty sure it's pretty common. We ask "how are you," but when we really want to know if our parents or the people in our Asian families and all that, are they really happy? If you find yourself trapped inside a dimming world, remember it was always this dark inside the body, where the heart, like any law, stops only for the living. The heart only stops for people who are still alive. It's a pretty direct thing, and on surface level, it doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't really have any imagery, but I do think it's kind of crazy that a heart can only stop when it is someone who's living. Otherwise, it's not anything. Someone has to live in order for their heart to stop. Someone has to have a heart pumping for the heart to stop in the first place. And again, it just ties back to the whole story, like that whole like theme of like, in order for you to have passion, in order to you to not have passion, or to have your passion be broken, you have to have it in the first place. So I still love hats. But yeah, it's pretty sad. And these are just a few from when Lan was like dying. and it's just really sad. She's passing away, and she keeps kind of like recollecting, or like talking about burning and being in obviously a lot of pain. She has like bone cancer, and it's just sad. It's just really sad. That's a lot of this book. A lot of this book is just like tragedy and being sad. I've also realized I'm up to 40 minutes now, so okay. And then this is a moment with Lan and little dog. Basically, it's meant to be a sweet moment. Basically, the little dog goes to collect flowers for his grandma after the grandma sees it and feels like, oh, it's so beautiful. And little dog climbs over the fence and is very scared. Obviously, he's like, I'm pretty sure like 6 or 5. The grandmother is like, oh, if you fall, I'll cut open the fence with my teeth and save you. I believed her and jumped, landed in a roll, got up and brushed myself off. Like, it's just so sad. The grandma is one of the only people in the story who like don't really have any like negative actions associated with them. She is like pretty much just like a pure-hearted soul who like kind of fought her way to America, or fought her way with her children to America. And the things that we see her go through are pretty... She's always like a bystander basically to everything, but at the same time she's such a driving force to everything that's happening, which I believe is a very good representation of like grandmothers and grandparents. And yeah, this is after the grandmother has passed away, and it's Lan, it's Hong, which is the mother, and Mai, who is her sister or little dog's aunt, and they're cleaning her up. And for once, Hong, the mother, basically speaks in English, but she curses, saying like fuck and stuff like that, because she's trying to like sort out the corpse. And this might have been because I was recently reading a fanfic about Prince Henry and Alex, and basically it's obviously it's a very known quote saying that grief makes us do horrible things. I think this is one of it. I think Hong might see English as kind of like a horrible thing, as in like it's not something that she wants to get involved with because she doesn't need to. She doesn't want to get tied in with America, which is something that she seems to oppose very much because of how much harm it has caused her job, where she works and all that. So her speaking in English, especially when she's cursing, it kind of expels in this kind of like, I'm at my wit's end. I can't do this anymore. My mother is dead. I can't help her corpse and all that. And it's like, damn girl, y'all got me on my heartstrings. Y'all got me on my heartstrings. I'm getting tugged on and shit. This one is small. Basically, it's at the grave of the grandmother, and Paul is little dog's grandfather, who is kind of estranged from Laan, and he is a white man who fell in love with her during the Vietnam War, and had basically fallen in love, and they had little dog's mother. So he's basically talking to the grave on a laptop that little dog is holding, and it is just like very disjointed kind of like dichotomy, and it's like it's literally a laptop with a floating digital head speaking to a grave. Just a striking imagery. Yeah, I'm skipping past a few. There's a lot of other stuff that kind of not stuff that happens, but kind of sad things that or imagery that's put in between, but I'm not going to go through them because I'm pretty sure this is long enough. I don't even know if you're focusing, I don't even know if you care, but it's mostly for myself because I just need to talk about it. This is one of the last few lines of the book. After this is the ending. Yes, there was a war. Yes, we came from its epicenter. In that war, a woman gifted herself a new name, Lan, and in that naming claimed herself beautiful, then made that beauty into something worth keeping. From that, a daughter was born, and from that daughter, a son. All this time I told myself we were born from war, but I was wrong, Ma. We were born from beauty. Let no one mistake us for the fruit of violence, but that violence, having passed through the fruit, failed to spoil it. Considering this comes around the end of the book, I see it as a little dog kind of embracing, it's like a way to embrace. They come from beauty, not from war. They come from Laan being able to name herself, being able to name her children after flowers and all that. It comes from beauty, and that the fruit of violence, it survives. Their fruit, they as fruits, have survived through that violence. Having pastured the fruit, failed to spoil it. I think that's pretty cool, and it's a very positive line in a book full of like sadness and like not pessimistic, but kind of like negative or more negative tones. This is one of the more like really positive and really like optimistic lines, and especially because it comes around the end of the book, I find it to be it's an amazing place for it to be. And then this is the ending. They're basically telling about stories of animals, and there's basically this whole thing about how in the Vietnam War or whatever, these white like these army men would eat monkey brains to kind of like cleanse them of their sins. So and when that happened, and when Hong was born and Little Dog's mother was born, it was the year of the monkey. So she was born in the year of the monkey. So it's this mother telling her child a story about how they used to eat monkey brains. Then the child, Little Dog, asked his mother, how did you get away then? You were born in the year of the monkey, you're a monkey basically. And it goes with monkey, moose, cows, dog, butterflies, buffaloes, what we would give to have the ruined lives of animals tell a human story, when our lives are in themselves the story of animals. Our curiosity to look at the negativity of other things, or to listen or want to know about the negative parts of other things when we in ourselves are probably dealing with our own issues, we tend to overlook and go to others instead of focusing on ourselves and focusing on the troubles of our own lives. But just specifically, this is mostly about animals. We want to know, we always want to listen to what animals have to say. We always want to know what animals can talk. When we think about it, we ourselves are already animals, and we already know what they are probably going through. We are going through too, just in different ways, because we are humans. And then she says, why didn't they get me? Well, because I was fast. Some monkeys are so fast, they're more like ghosts, they just poof. And then, without moving your head, you look at me the way a mother looks at anything for too long. Then for no reason, you start to laugh. And that's where the book ends. I just think it's a very fond moment, especially between Little Dog and his mother. There's not a lot of super fond moments here, but this is one of them. And I just think it's such a great way to end it, because it doesn't really say anything. It just says, through it all, humans will thrive. Through it all, humans survive, just as any animal is, just as the animal kingdom survives, we too as humans tend to thrive and really push through it. Then the last bit about how it's basically a motherly action to just like look at too long, and also just starting to laugh. It's just a moment of fondness. I don't think there's that much imagery there. I think it's just this mother has talked to her child and is laughing because she loves her child. She loves the smaller things. She loves her child, and she loves telling just the story to her child. And yeah, so that's On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous by Ocean Vuong. And I if I had to rate it out of like 5, I would probably give it like maybe a 3.5 or a 4. It is a good book. I just think that if you're not someone who's really like into looking at imagery or really analyzing things, you probably won't enjoy it as much. I do enjoy it, but I also think that it's very heavy, and it's not heavy in the sense of like theming. It is pretty heavy in the sense of theming, but in terms of like language and how it talks about things, it is very intense, and it's poetry. So if you enjoy reading poetry, you enjoy like deciphering imagery, it's probably good for you. If not, maybe not, but I still do think it's worth a read, and worth to at least like maybe like watch a video on it. I don't know. I think it explores really interesting topics, and it's a very good summative of so many things that someone may go through, especially for me as a queer Asian guy. It made me feel a lot of things, and it felt really personal to me. Especially with the story of Trevor and all that, and I'm still pretty raw from that. I'm still pretty fresh from that experience, and hearing him describe it, hearing Vuong describe it in a way of like describing this kind of like adolescent first love. It was pretty good. So yeah, I'm now at 50 minutes. I just hit 50 minutes. I'm probably this will be edited down, obviously. I don't know by how much. I don't know how much it will really cut down. But I hope if you did watch through all of it, I really appreciate you. I hope if you liked my review of it, or like my kind of breakthrough of it and what I liked, hopefully you will like it too and want to read it. Or if you didn't watch it through, then you're probably not even here to listen to me, so who fucking cares? Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Have a good night. Have a good evening, day, whatever. You have a good day. Much love to you and yours.